All right, we're recording. And speaking of recording, this is a tip that I always give. A lot of times we'll talk about things, you'll ask questions, I'll give you information as we go through this course, this semester and semesters following. I always recommend that you kind of keep a timetable where you're taking notes, if you are taking notes, or maybe get a scrap piece of paper. And if I say something, kind of where that you might want to go back and refer to later, just jot the time down. So that way, when you get the recording, you won't think, okay, and I'm gonna have to watch this whole recording to find one sentence. If you jot the time down, then you'll kind of get an estimation. Okay, well, he said that about 7:05. So I'm just going to fast forward a little bit and then I'll pick it up there. So that's just a little tip that I always give my candidates, just as we record all of these sessions and we go over some things or somebody asks some questions. It's you think, if you like me, when I go to professional development, sometime I'm thinking, wow, I really got that clear. I understand that. But by the time I get back to my office, I'm like, what did they say? So it can happen the same thing in this venue. So like I said, just jot the time down and that might help you as you go back to a specific thing in the recording. So as you all should know by now, you are two cohorts. Some of you have Dr. Todd and some of you have Dr. Church for MELS 601. The reason we combine here, for one reason, is it kind of gets everybody grouped together and it kind of expands your network of people who are going through this. You hear different perspectives from not just your cohort, but from a new set of cohort and some of the things that they're going through. And so you can benefit from some of those conversations and discussion that occurs. Another thing is that it's just time efficient. That way, by doing this cohort together, I'm available for more individual Zoom sessions, small group Zoom sessions, and we'll talk about that in just a second. So some of the things that you hear, like I told you when I was meeting with you with Dr. Church or Dr. Todd, most of everything's going to be the same. However, Dr. Church has his way of doing things. Dr. Todd has her way of doing things. And as a clinical coach and a support to them as well as the candidates, I try to adjust myself to what's best for them. And that way it's not, we try to be consistent across the board. Sometimes things are going to, there's going to be hiccups. There's going to be speed bumps. There's going to be mistakes. We're all human beings, and that's just going to happen. And I think everyone has come to learn how to extend grace a little more than what you may have in the past, just by what we've all been through in the last couple of years and what we're going through now. So but I'll try to make sure that I differentiate between the two cohorts with things going on. But if I ever say something that's contradictory to your course instructor, please let me know. Please let me know. I'm going to go ahead and do a screen share. Let me get here and pull up. Okay, you should be looking right now at my schedule, and you probably found that because you're here. And we've already come down here till September the 9th. And this is really the very first clinical coach Zoom session, as you know, because you're here, or you read the email that I sent out a few moments ago. Here is the Zoom session. This will be the Zoom link for all of our sessions. And I just wanted to draw your attention to this kind of tonight. I'll do whatever you need. Whenever we meet, I'll do whatever you need. If you need me to review something that's been reviewed before, I'll be happy to do that. If you feel like you've got a good grasp on it and I start talking about, a particular topic and you as a group feel that you're in good shape on that, then I don't want to waste your time. This is all about what you need and supporting you as you progress through the program. So I've got absolute task 1 and 2. We've gone over task 1. And I know if you were in Dr. Todd's cohort, I feel pretty sure that she's gone over absolute task 2. I'll be happy to give you my perspective on it and give you some quick information on it. We're going to go over Blackboard internship shell again, because I just want to be sure as you're completing your task now. As you're completing task 1 and you're moving through that, maybe getting into task 2, you're getting feedback from your peer reviews. You may be getting feedback from your course instructor. I want to be sure that you know that the process of getting feedback from me, and we'll address that. And then just give a quick overview of that and a question and answer. The reason I pulled this up, though, is if you'll notice, I have this on each of these rows. You know, we're meeting about every other week, but in between that, I have optional. And if you ever need an individual Zoom session, we can arrange it for Thursday evenings during this time. If you need it during the day, I'm fortunate enough to be able to take my lunch break at work whenever I choose to. And I do that. Usually I spend my lunch break, answering emails, maybe looking at a few tasks to give feedback on, or I'll Zoom with you, or if a phone conversation is good and you just need to talk on the phone, we can arrange that. But I leave this up for any individual Zoom sessions. If you want me to Zoom with your peer group, I'll be happy to Zoom with your peer group. If everybody has got some questions as to what's going on that's kind of consistent across the group, and you guys all want to meet with me at one time, be happy to do that. You just let me know. I do probably need a couple of days notice, especially if you want me to meet with you during the day, so I can make sure I'm open on my calendar and make sure I can arrange to have my lunch break at that time to where I can meet with you during the day, and of course in the evenings too. In the evenings, I'm like you. I'm busy, from the time the sun comes up to before the sun comes up and after the sun goes down. But like I said, we will make time for you if need be. So this is kind of the way I've got our schedule laid out over the course of the semester. I am going to talk a little bit about TaskStream, even though it really doesn't come into week 7. I am going to talk a little bit about TaskStream tonight. But before we do that, we'll go ahead and look at the internship shell. I'm going to have to move your screen so I can see my screen. As you know, this will be where you link in to my internship shell. It's different than Dr. Church's course shell. It's different than Dr. Todd's course shell. This is the clinical internship shell. This is how we exchange feedback and correspondence in relationship to your task. I don't review your assignments that you get in the course instructor. Any assignments, your case studies, any discussion threads going on there in your course shell, I don't review or give feedback on that. But with that saying, if you need my help, I will help you regardless of where it's at. And I'm just saying that because I'm not familiar with the expectations in the course assignments and the case studies. So if I can't help you, I can get you in touch with Dr. Church. I can get you in touch with Dr. Todd. I can get you in touch with somebody at the university. If you're having technical issues, I can get you in touch with that. So, I'm here to help you. Like I said, it doesn't have to be just with the Absol and your TaskStream. But you'll find my internship shell here. Now, I know some of you have got to the point where you've received feedback on Absol Task 1 and you're finishing Absol Task 1. And this is kind of where there's a differentiation between Dr. Church and Dr. Todd. Usually, Dr. Todd will like to see that, and then Dr. Todd will be the one to tell you when to send it to me for feedback. So you should be, if you're in Dr. Todd's class, if you finished the Absol Task 1, you may have turned that in and she may have given you feedback, and then she'll say, send it to me. When you send it to me, or in Dr. Church's class, sometimes he will like for you to send it to me first and get my initial feedback on it, and then he'll take a look at it after I look at it. So, there's a little difference there. But anyway, whenever the course instructor tells you to send it to me, just be sure that you send it in task for review. That's where we give feedback and we do the revision process. We get it in great shape. By the time it leaves Absol Task for review, in my opinion, it's 100. You won't ever have to touch it again for revision. That's where I'm at with that. After you send it to me for review, and you will click on review. You send it to me here. I give you feedback. I'm either going to say, hey, I got a few suggestions for you. You take a look at that and you revise. At the end of the day, this is your document. I'm not trying to change your style of writing. I'm not trying to change what's going on and what you've documented is happening in your school. I know what a professional document looks like. I know what the evaluators are looking for. I know what the the scope and sequence of what you're doing in the absolute looks like. So I'm going to give you suggestions based on what I've seen in the past. But at the end of the day, it is your document. I can't force you to make revisions. I can't force you to add anything. So, I just want you to know that, because I feel like I don't want to squelch your creativity in your narrative by thinking, well, I'm going to have to write it his way, even though he doesn't understand. And sometimes come back at me. If I give you a suggestion and you're saying, well, no, that I don't think that, I don't want to put that in there, and here's why. This is what I'm seeing. This is what my school's like. This is what the culture of my school is like. And you explain that to me, I very well may say, hey, okay, I got you. Leave it as is. And now that I understand a little bit about what's going on in your particular situation, you're right. This does fit better. So this is a conversation between the two of us to get your document in really great shape. And I may also say, hey, I don't have any suggestions for improvement. This is great. You're welcome to send it on. So whatever happens there, whenever it gets to the point where I feel like it's 100, where I feel like it is right and marked with the rubric, you won't ever have to revise it again. I'm going to say, send it to the evaluation Dropbox. Then that send it to my evaluation Dropbox. So once we revise it, and I tell you, send to the evaluation Dropbox, this is where I'm talking about here. This is where I collect proof that we went through the revision process. This is where I collect your points, so I can give you a grade for this 697 course, this clinical internship course. I have to collect, that, so I can justify you in giving you the grade that I give you from the university. So that's why it's messy if we try to do the revision process within the evaluation Dropbox, because every time something gets dropped in there, I got to grade it. So if it's not right, then I got to give you whatever I think, a 50 or a 60 or a 70. Let's go through it again. Let's get it up to 100. Let's revise it. It's a whole lot cleaner if we do all the revision up here in task for review and not take a grade on it until we get it in good shape for the evaluation Dropbox. I'm going to pause and see if you have any questions on that process. That's because you guys are so smart. See, that's awesome. It's not that I'm doing that great a job of explaining it. Y'all are just doing a great job of understanding it. So thank you for that. All right, so that's kind of what we use the internship shell for. As you know, I went through, there's some information here that you can use. It's basically the same thing that's located in your course instructor shells. The main thing is, if you ever want to find the recording and you can't, I always send it to you in the email, send the link, the YouTube link and the email to you after class, within the next 24 hours. If you ever can't find that email, you can always find the link here in my video library as well. So that's kind of an overview. So as you are finishing up task 1 and you either your course instructor said, send it to Dr. Bullis now, or send it to me. I want to give you feedback and then send it to Dr. Bullis. Whenever they tell you to send it to me, this is where you put it, and we will engage that process. If you ever have any questions about it, let me know. If you're not sure where to drop it, because it's easy to forget, it's easy to get mixed up. It's another platform that you're working in. Course instructor says one thing for their course shell, Joe says another thing for his clinical shell. It's easy to get confused, and if don't worry, there's no mistake that can happen in here that we can't correct. So you're good on that. All right, so let me go now. Let me go now to the, let me find out where it's at first. Okay, that's mail. I've got all these little screens here. Okay, here we go. All right, so here's the scale handbook. I know your instructors have given you information on task 1. Depending on your course instructor, you may or may not been given information on task 2. There's just a few things in task 2 that I want to highlight. So I'm going to do that, and then we'll pause and see if you have any questions. If I need to go into more depth, then I will. I'm not trying to repeat and, saying, well, you're wasting my time. I already heard that. I got that. Like I said before, I'm not trying to do that. I'm just going to give you a few points, and then if you need me to go into more depth, I will. The thing about task 2 is this is all about collecting data and looking for a need. I mean, this is great process for an administrator, because this is what you're going to do. Is you're going to continue to review the culture, review test scores, review attendance data, discipline data, EVOS information, check-in information. If you're doing any kind of diagnostic testing in relationship to COVID, you're going to be looking at all that, looking for the gaps. Where are the gaps at? What do we need to address? So this is all about you as a leader going out and finding that data and telling. Remember, you got to tell that story. So you need to go and look at all the data available to you. Now, everybody's got something different. Everybody may even come to the table with a little bit of, hint of what they want to focus on, and that's okay. But you need to have the data support it. Don't come to the table with an idea that you know what's going on. Now you may very well be, and that's fine if you do say, well, I know what the need is. The need is 7th grade mathematics. I know what the need is. And that's fine. If you know that already, then great. You're ahead of the game thinking along those lines, but make sure that you got the data and show the data to support that. That's the key. Is let the data tell you what the need is, not your, maybe not your preconceived notions or your bias or your perspective. It's fine if they line up. That's great, but make sure the data supports the direction that you want to lead the team. That's what's going to be most beneficial to your student. So you're going to find out what the most learning need is. Now, this isn't about facilities. This isn't about teacher empowerment. This isn't about, the landscaping out in front of the office, or paving the parking lot. This is all about learning needs of your student. That's what you need to focus on here. You're going to collect that information, present it to your team, and then you and the team are going to have a conversation about that data, looking for those learning needs. In the task 2, you're going to have to use visuals, so make sure that you should have already had the APA Zoom session. Make sure you know how to fit a visual in there, if it's a graph or if it's a table, if it goes in as a figure, how to sequentially number or letter your figures within your narrative, and also how to title those according to APA. Make sure you know how to do that. Now, some people like to take their visual and put it at the end of the document in an appendix. And that's okay for artifacts, like we talked before. It's okay for your agenda, for the minutes of the meeting. But when you're talking about data, personally, this is my preference as the reader. If you're talking about a specific piece of data, it helps me to be able to refer to it right below of where you're talking about. So if you're talking about EOG scores or EOC scores, and you're pulling out something specific like Math 1, and you're talking about what you've seen in your Math 1 scores, EOC scores, then me as the reader, it's going to help me. You're going to say see figure 1. Then it's going to help me to look right beneath that and see what you're talking about. So rather than scrolling all the way to the end of the document, seeing what you're talking about visually, because I'm a visual learner, so I always look for the visuals. So if you put it all at the end of the document, I got to read what you're talking about, then I got to scroll all the way down or scroll all the way up. I can never remember which way I'm talking here. But I'll go all the way to your document, look at that visual, and then go back up to the top of the document and read the next section. So I prefer that you put your visuals in right after you discuss them. Another thing is, another thing that I want to talk about here is make sure that you look at all of your populations, your subgroup. Make sure you give attention to forms of diversity in the need population. Make sure that whatever population that you identify that has that need, make sure that you look at all your subgroups and make sure that you correlate that with what you're seeing across the board. You know, 7th grade mathematics as a whole needs to be improved. Where there's specific groups within that within the 7th grade, we know what groups are doing well. Are your high students doing well? Are they making growth? Are your low students making growth? How are you getting the kids off the bubble in your mid group? Or is it how's your special needs population doing? How's your EL population doing? So make sure that you draw attention to that. And here's the key as far as APSL Task 2, make sure that you tell this story and you describe how you collect the data. Who did you go to? Where did you pull it from? Did you go to the data manager and pull data, the principal and pull data? Did you go to the testing or the accountability director in your district and pulling that data? Was it something that you already had in your files that you're already working on and you pull that information? So just be sure that you describe how you went and collected the data and processed that and prepared it for the PLC, prepared it for your team, because you don't need to tell the team what the need is. You and the team together discover the need. And you may already know going in, like I told you, for example, today, I knew that we needed to transition from robotics into drone technology in the high school. I know for a fact that's what we need to do. The research supports it, the business and industry support it. But what I wanted buy-in from our robotics teachers that that's what they needed to do. So I just gave them the research today. I said, this is what I found out. This is what it looks like to me, and this is what others are doing. What do you guys think about this? Talk to me about what you feel is needed for our program. And they arrived at that decision on their own. So you as a group, and it could be they convinced me the other way if they had the data to support that. But you as a group and you as the facilitator and the leader, orchestrate that conversation, orchestrate that discussion. And that's what you need to tell in your narrative, is showing that leadership. It says somewhere in here, candidates will create a video clip, a meeting, and also I think it has a reference to maybe a Zoom. You can use that stuff. This will become more important, is highlighting the use of your digital learning skills. Will cover your digital learning competencies. They're embedded throughout the program. That'll become clearer when we get into task stream. But just know that where it tells you to and encourages you to utilize technology and digital learning to process these tasks, it's doing that for a reason, because not only are you meeting leadership skills and leadership competencies, but in doing that, you're meeting digital learning competencies as well. And we'll get into that more specific. Here it does say here that a video meeting is optional. You don't have to record yourself for doing this meeting. I always think that's a great artifact. You could do a video clip if you want to. You could do a recording of a Zoom if you want to. You could do, like I said, there's other artifacts that are created by you meeting. It doesn't have to be a video of the meeting. But I like to see that. But if that's not what you want to highlight, that's fine. It's not mandatory. The main thing is you describe the evidence, describe and evidence your data collection strategies and the processes you use to identify the learning needs, and you leading the collaborative discussion. The second thing is you show the data in terms of visual charts, tables, graphs, etc. Within your narrative. You make sure that you show that. That's basically task 2. We scroll down or scroll up so we can go down. I need to work on that. Scroll up so you can go down. So we scroll up to APSL Task 2, same thing that we talked about. I know if you're in Dr. Church's and Dr. Paz, they probably talked to you about organizing your paper. These are good subheadings, data collection strategies, PLC meeting, and then of course you incorporate the visuals within that, and then always showing evidence of you leading the conversation and you being a facilitator of that, identifying the specific need. So task one, you did your research on a PLC, found out how to organize a PLC, you got your PLC together, you discussed the mission, the vision, the purpose of the PLC, you got permission to have the PLC, now you put them to work. Task two is all about going out there and getting that data, organizing it and putting it in a present, and that's a great artifact too, is you making a presentation for your PLC of what the data shows. That's a great artifact. So you organize the data, you put it together, you put it in presentation form for them, and then you present that to your team, and you and the team come together with whatever your specific need is. That's task 1 and 2. What questions do you have?
Dr. Willis?
Yeah, hey, man.
Hi there. I'm gathering data, and prior to 2020, we were drowning in data. But the last, 2 years, we don't have EVOS scores. Our test scores, 2019, 2020, we don't have any. Last year's are, I'm not even sure we're going to get school report cards, things like that. Attendance data is what it is, virtual, So I feel like, I've got a lot of stuff up until 2019, and then it kind of drops off. I just wonder, is that okay as long as we talk about that in our narrative about why, I was just worried about not having a lot of current data right now. To go on.
That is a great comment, great question. I'm glad you brought it up. And that's the reality of where we're at right now. And that's something that you as an administrator that's what your principals are facing right now, your instructional specialists. You as a teacher are facing that, and that's great. And you said you answered your own question. As long as you talk about this is why, it may be that you just have, a lot of school systems are getting federal grants to purchase that diagnostic tool. Some are purchasing the one that DPI is putting out there, and some are purchasing their own. We're using the STAR diagnostic tool, and they're getting information trying to identify those gaps. Where's the learning loss occurring for the students in our school? So you have that. You have assessments that are done, formative assessments that are done in the classroom. It just depends on what group you're looking at. So it's okay for you to say, this is what I looked at because this is what I've got because this is COVID. That is a challenge in itself. And I've been talking to candidates for the last 2 years about this. You are gaining skills and knowledge that and I know you've heard this before, but that no one else has had opportunity to do. You're charting the course that others will follow when this happens again. So write about that in your narrative. Talk about that. Talk about what's going on. You may be in remote instruction right now, or you may have your school may be closed down right now, or quarantine. Tell that story and address that in the narrative, and just use the data that you can to make. And it may be SEL data, social emotional learning data, that you look at, because that is creating a learning need in itself. So that might be something that you can pull in. I know a lot of systems and districts are gathering that information now to determine, what's the social emotional learning needs created by what we're going through. I'm going to look at the chat, but somebody else has a question. And Maggie, I hope I answered it. If I don't ever answer the question and I don't help you, let me know and we'll go back and revisit it.
No, you did. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. You're welcome.
Well, I was going to say one thing. I was able to actually get a hold of some iReady scores that classes were actually using pretty well. It's not as good as like assessments at the end of the year, but it was able to show me reading and math and kind of where my kids were at. So I know for me, that was one thing I was able to pull, was those iReady scores from downtown. Yeah,
great comment, Josiah. That's perfect. Thank you for sharing that. Anybody else got any ideas?
I'm in a similar situation. My PLC revolves around intervention or intensive support problem solving. So I'm the MTSS coordinator at my school. So we look at students who are, there's a core problem, or if there's a supplemental problem. And so we have to put students in tiers. Well, all of our kids have lost learning. I mean, they're all struggling. So all of them should be in some sort of tiered support. So it's going to be a real challenge to kind of weed out the ones that are struggling because of COVID and learning loss, or the ones that are really struggling because of maybe a learning deficit, or, you know, those types of things. So it's going to be a challenge. And data, I'm with you on that too. We've got kids that didn't show up at all. We've got kindergartners from last year that are in first grade that can't even hold a pencil correctly. So it's like, so yeah, I feel your pain.
Great comments, Tammy, because if you're introducing interventions and the whole class is getting the interventions, then it's not an intervention. It's not an intervention. So, you know, you're going to progress monitor the whole class. You know, I get what you're saying. And like I said, that's what an administrator would be going through nowadays. So it's, I know you don't want to hear this, and I'm not being flippant by saying it, but it's actually a great thing that you're getting this experience. It's going to make you a stronger administrator. It certainly is. Any other questions or comments? I'm sorry, go ahead. Yeah.
I just want to follow up with this because I'm looking at a very similar situation, especially because my PLC, our school is 6 through 12, and but the PLC is just high school teachers. And so basically the only data I have that someone was able to give me was the 10th grade EOC in South Carolina. They just took the English 2 EOC. And so that is a piece of data for sure, but it doesn't cover everything. And so I just want to clarify or get clarification on, is any data okay to use, or only state data? And then is what you're saying really is take it all and frame it in a narrative? I guess, sorry, maybe I phrased that wrong, but if we don't have a lot of data, is it going to reflect on us poorly if we have a good narrative to support the lack of data?
Great statement. Perfect question. No, it's not. I mean, is it okay to use any data? If it is, and there we go back to, this is your unique situation. Even if I know some of you may, or a couple of you may be in the same school and working in the same PLC, but it's still unique to your culture. You use the data that you need to support the students in your school, as long as it's addressing learning needs. And so, you know, can we use all the data? Well, if you think that it'll be beneficial to you and beneficial to your PLC to lead you to where that need is, then yes, you can. You know, maybe doing a survey on, you know, if the lunchroom is clean. I don't, you know, you can argue anything will have an impact on student learning, but just make sure that you're looking at something that's going to address learning loss and will have the most impact. You know, what's going to have the most impact, and that's what the data is going to pull from. And if you don't have a lot, for whatever reason, just, you know, explain that in the narrative and tell the reader why. It's not going to be looked on poorly as you as a candidate. You know, if I only got 3 nails and 1 piece of board to build a birdhouse, then that's all I can do. I can do the best job I can building a birdhouse with those small pieces of material. But you know, that's all that I've got to work with. And you just tell that story and tell the reader why. If I'm ever reading the narrative and I feel like you need to put a little more detail in that, I'll let you know and ask you a little bit more about your unique situation that supports where that narrative is going. Great comments. You guys are great. This is a good
Thank you
group.
so much.
Sure.
Thank you.
Certainly.
I have a quick question that is not on the topic of data, but
Okay.
I was unable to have my PLC because it's so specialized and such a small team. And we have designated days called our cadre days. So I'm not able to actually do or have my PLC until next Tuesday.
Okay.
So I wasn't able to write about the meeting, but I did everything else. Is that cool?
Yeah.
I mean, okay.
That happens. That hit everybody real hard, you know, in March when COVID, everybody was gone. Some people got creative with emails and Zooming and stuff like that, and that's fine as long as you can, you know, just keep an eye on your pace and the meetings that you got available to you to make sure that you kind of finish up, you know, in line with the deadline. And I wanted to mention that too. If I don't give deadlines, because, you know, when the superintendent comes in my office and he says, Bullis, I need this, 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 and this, he doesn't tell me, you know, one piece of it get to me by Tuesday, the next piece of it get to me by, you know, 3 weeks from next Thursday. He needs it, and he needs it as soon as I can get it to him. And then I know what else I've got going on, so I pace what he needs. I need to get to him with the other things that I've got to accomplish, and so I set my own deadlines. And that's, I don't give deadlines. I know your course instructors do. I know there's suggested deadlines and pacing guide, if you will, in the material that you've been given. So, you know, it's going to make you a stronger leader if you kind of self-pace. So just be sure that you know what's available to you, and that kind of lines up with you getting through the program on time. If I ever get concerned about where you're at, we'll have a conversation. But guys, listen, I went through my master's with in Gardner Webb. I went through my doctorate in Gardner Webb. Gardner Webb is really good at understanding life. And what I mean by that is you're going to have to take kids to basketball practice. Your car is going to break down. You're going to be pulled into a meeting after school that you had no idea that you were going to. God forbid, and I hope and pray it doesn't happen, but you know, you may get sick. You may have some type of emergency. And once again, I pray to God that that doesn't happen. But life is going to hit us through this program. As long as me and Dr. Todd and Dr. Church know what's going on, we can help you get through any of those bumps. Just let us know. Just let us know. But if I ever get a little bit worried about the work that you're turning in and where you're at, I'll contact you and reach out to you and just say, hey, is everything okay? Is there anything I can, you know, do you need some help with anything? And that way we'll kind of keep you on track. One of the things I do, I don't do it so much at the beginning, but kind of mid-semester is just kind of do an audit of who's turned in what and when they've turned in. And I may send you an email and say, this is what I'm showing that you have left to accomplish. Make sure that we're on the same page with that. But yeah, let us know anything going on. What other questions do you have, or anything that you want to share with what we've been talking about this evening? And it doesn't have to be about task 1 and task 2. Any question that you have.
Hey, Dr. Bullis, I have a quick question about task 1, actually.
Yes, sir.
It has to do with the appendices. So like, I know in that section about the meeting, you're often gonna have to provide your evidence for your email and maybe a picture and an agenda, things like that. So when I'm mentioning see Appendix A or see Appendix B, what does that look like, I guess, within the paper, and then also like the actual page designated for appendices?
Yeah, that's a great question. Great question. Appendices is always, in my opinion, is always the last thing that you see. It's past the reference page. And appendices is just what you said, Cam. It's those artifacts that, you know, it's great to refer to them, but it's something that, you know, the reader doesn't need to see right now. Like I said, if you're talking about the data and you want to draw a specific point to the data to help the reader understand what you're saying, that's when it needs to go in a figure. If you're referring to something that's just an artifact, just proof of what you did, like an agenda or something like that, you can just say, you know, the candidate contacted the school administration and received permission to conduct a PLC or to hold a PLC, parentheses, see Appendix A, parentheses. Or during the meeting, the candidate followed the agenda as described, see Appendices B. And then you go down to the bottom of your paper, you have like a Appendix A, and then there's the artifact, a screenshot, or you insert it as a JPEG or whatever. And then next page, Appendix B, so on and so forth. Does that help?
Okay. Yeah, so I just wanted to know if each evidence or artifact was its own page and own appendix. I don't know if it was Appendix A, evidence 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or if it was Appendix A, B, C, D, on and on and on.
Yeah, great. Okay, great. I'm sorry I missed that question. I prefer it to be separate. Yeah, and like I said, if I ever see anything that I have a question about, I'll give you feedback on it and see. And then if you say, well, I really want it this way because of so and so and so, then yeah, we'll have a conversation about it. But yeah, I prefer each appendix to have its own page. Yes.
And really quick, also, I saw in in the handbook or somewhere where it said, like you just said, to refer to yourself as the candidate. But then I've spoken to a few of my colleagues and they told me they wrote it in first person. So, but it sounds like it should be as the candidate.
No, you're right, Cam. Thank you so much for bringing that up. APA changed between the 6th and 7th edition, I think. And it was a huge change for those of us who do this for years. And like I said, this is my 15th year as an adjunct professor for Gardner Webb doing this. I mean, right up until 2 years ago or 3 years ago, it was always, you had to write to yourself in third person. The candidate did this, the candidate did that. Even in doctoral for dissertations, it was that way. And then all of a sudden, APA switched, and now you can write in first person. So it takes me a while to get out of that habit. I'm still stuck in third person mode. So I'm glad you said that. Yes, you are allowed, and well, you have to actually write in first person now. APA requires that you write in first person. I did this, I did that, so on and so forth. Yeah, thank you so much for bringing that up.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Can you
And
clarify? Right, we
any-
do write in first person. You're saying we do?
You do write in first person, yes. APA 7th edition
Okay.
says that you do write in first person. Yeah, I'm glad you clarified that, because sometimes I get a little rambly. And I don't even know if rambly is a word. See, the caffeine's already kicking in now. I don't feel sorry for you guys, because I'm getting hit with the second cup of coffee right now. I'm saying like words that don't even exist. But
I met with the writing center and they told me to change it. That's why I was clarifying.
yeah, now say that to me again, Cynthia. The writing center told you to change it into the third person?
They told me to take the I's out of my candidate selection, my PLC selection section. They told me to take the I's out of that section.
Now that's who did you get a name of the person you spoke with?
I have it in my email. I think her name was Grace. I mean, whoever they assigned me that day.
Yeah. Okay.
But you want, I mean, I'm going to go back and change it, obviously, but.
Yeah. And where some of the confusion is, we've actually got a group of candidates that are still in 6th edition that were enrolled in the program before the APA switched over. So to not create confusion, we're going to keep them in the 6th edition, and all the new candidates coming through have transitioned over to the 7th edition. That might be the situation. But if you don't mind, Cynthia, will you send me an email kind of just reminding me of what occurred? Because I want to track that down, because it is first person, and I don't want to, say something negative about the people from the writing center. I just want to clarify that, so make sure that we're all sending out the same information. And I'm afraid I'll forget it if you don't send me an email, just a quick email.
Is it okay to leave the article out entirely in some things and just to state something as a fact, or would you prefer that the I is used just for the intentionality of it?
No, you do not have to. You can do just what you said. You can just put a statement. It doesn't have to say I, but you are allowed to refer to yourself in first person.
Gotcha. Thank you.
You're welcome. Great questions.
Dr. Bullis.
Yes,
when
sir.
we're talking about the PLC meeting, when we're basically like talking about who's in our meeting or who's in our PLC, do we need to name those people as well, or just kind of like the English teacher or the math teacher, or do we actually put like Melanie or whoever it is?
Yeah, great question. Either way, however, if you name that person, like Joe Bullis, the English teacher is on, just make sure you got permission to use that person's name. You can, I've seen it done both ways. I've even seen people go, teacher A, teacher B, teacher C. So it's whatever you feel comfortable with. The only thing that I would offer as a suggestion is if you name the person, make sure you got their permission to do so.
Okay, thank you.
Now, but with that being said, whatever is said here stays here. Nobody, if you're going to, if you go over the strengths and maybe weaknesses of a PLC member and you say something bad about Joe Bullis, I'm not going to run to your school and say, oh, guess what Josiah said about you. So, you're in a safe zone. Just want to make sure we say that.
I don't have a problem saying it to him, so it's all right.
That I like. That I like. Awesome. All right. We're not done. I'll be happy to answer any questions, but I did want to mention, talk a little bit about TaskStream. Not a lot, just a little bit. Just know that don't ever feel like you're getting behind on anything. Even if you have people in different cohorts, remember there's a cohort of just of add-on people. So their work, they kind of double up each semester because they're not going for licensure. Excuse me, they're not going for a diploma. They're just getting licensure. They're just adding on the school admin license. So they only really do 3 semesters. So they double up each semester. So they're always going to be, just for the nature of what they're doing and the context by what they're doing it, by which they're doing it, they're always going to be a little bit ahead of you in information and pacing guide and so on and so forth. So, I like to do this one little bit at a time, give you a chance to get acclimated. If I'm coming back off an injury, I don't go out and run 6 miles first time I hit the ground. I run a mile and then give my body a chance to acclimate to that distance. That's kind of what I'm doing with the pace of this. And I know Dr. Church and Dr. Todd is too. We're not telling you everything because you don't need to know everything now. Let's get you acclimated to the process, as needed, and then we'll add a little bit more. So you may see or hear people talking about TaskStream. Has anybody got their TaskStream information of how to sign into their account? Okay. That's great. You can do that and sign into your account if you want to. You can go in there and look around if you want to, but you don't have to do anything with that right now. And the reason that you don't have to do anything with it is because the main thing that you're going to use TaskStream is a place to dump artifacts. And your completed ABSL. So you can't even dump your ABSL in there until you finish it. So there's no sense in worrying about that until you get done finishing the ABSL. It also dumping those artifacts in there. That's really the other main thing it's for. Now, yeah, it's very important because this is where the evaluators, grade, and this is the final piece of validation that you're done and you completed and successfully completed this course. But there's nothing you need to put in there right now. So I'm okay with waiting even until week 7 to talk about TaskStream because the first thing you need to concentrate on is getting the ABSL written. And by defact, by finishing the ABSL, you are working of items that you will use to put into TaskStream. So getting the ABSL done, task 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 is the most important thing, because in doing that, you're getting yourself prepared to put everything into TaskStream. There is a couple of little things that you need to do in TaskStream, but they're basically just self-assessments. You can complete those in 10 to 15 minutes. And you're really not to the point now to see how much you've grown. You need to engage the process a little bit more. With that being said, if you ever feel uncomfortable and you want to know more, and I'm not moving at the pace that you want me to move, I don't want to hold you back. I'm truly about differentiation. Then you let me know, and I'll give you some information on TaskStream. I'm not sure if Dr. Church, and I'm referring to my phone right here because I've got the email up. I'm not sure if Dr. Church or Dr. Todd sent this out. You may get an email forwarded from Dr. Lamb about TaskStream, and it's just it says Dale's notes on TaskStream, and that's Dr. Lamb, Dale Lamb, and then it gives about 10 pieces of information about what to do and what not to do in TaskStream. You can read through that. A lot of it won't make sense to you now because just like everything, there's some acronyms in there, there's some references in there that you don't have yet, so you don't really have a good frame of reference. But we will get to all that, and we will get to it when you need it and in a timely manner for you to accomplish the program. But I just wanted to let you know that you may see that coming across your email. You can read through it. If you got any questions about it, let me know. I'll refer to it. But it talks about, the DRF. That's the direct response failure. We'll talk about that later. That's where you put your ABSL when it's done. You just put it in there. There's a couple of self-assessments in the DRF that you do. That's what you do there. And like I said, those self-assessments, Tiffany, I see your hand. I'll get right to you. Thank you so much. those self-assessments, those are the ones I'm talking about, takes 10 or 15 minutes. The other thing that you're going to see referred to is called the competency portfolio or the competency folio. That's where you dump your artifacts in, and that's where you get feedback on your internship log. So those are the two main things, but we will pull them up, we'll look through it, and we'll go over it several times. Just like I've gone over the internship shell with you several times, we'll go over task stream several times. So, but if you ever feel apprehensive about it or nervous about it, I don't want you to have a panic attack, or I know your blood pressure is getting high. I don't want it to get high too much. If it will help you to know more about it, I will go over it. You just let me know individually or as a group. Tiffany, I really appreciate your patience. What can I help you with?
I just had a question. Are we, should we be having a PLC meeting every week? Is this something that we should be doing every week with our PLC group? If at all possible. I know I'm having to schedule mine in the afternoon. So these are teachers that are staying after school, and sometimes it's not feasible for them to do it every single week. So in order to keep up with our tasks, like with task 2, and should we be meeting every week with our PLC?
Well, that is a great question, Tiffany, and I'm all about not meeting just to have a meeting. And I think my teachers, when I was a principals, were really appreciative of that, and my the people that I work with now appreciative of that. That's for you to determine. You know, what would you meet on every week? You know, you need to meet to establish your mission and purpose. That's task 1. You need to meet to determine the need. That's task 2. Now, going over that data, depending on your schedule and the time you're allotted, may take a few PLC meetings, but there's nothing that says that you have to meet every week. You know, I have a couple of people work with me in the office, and I tell them, you know, just get the job done. Just get the job done and fit it in with what your schedule allows. So no, ma'am, you do not have to meet every week, and nobody is looking for documentation that you met with your PLC every week. There was a question on the chat. It said, when should I submit Absol Task 1, peer review 1 with YouTube links? Ask Dr. Church that question. Dr. Todd and Dr. Church have, you know, kind of their own time frame of when they want to see that. So just follow Dr. Church's lead on that, or Dr. Todd's lead on that. Just whenever your course instructor tells you to send it to me, then send it to me. Usually, you know, task 1 takes task 2 usually takes, you know, 3 to 4 weeks to get done and come to me. Sometimes it comes in faster, sometimes it comes in slower. And those really, task 1 and task 2 are really the most difficult tasks that are most time consuming, because first of all, you're creating that PLC, you got to do the research, then you're creating the PLC, then you're talking about mission of the P and purpose of the PLC. Task 2, you know, it's all about going through the data and establishing the need. Task 3 is, you know, this is kind of process that you do an action plan with. You get your group together, you look at a bunch of data and determine what the need is. Then you go out there and find out evidence-based practices that might have a positive impact on that need, and then you set an action plan in place to utilize those resources and evidence-based practices. So that's kind of the process. The hardest piece is collecting the data and just determining the need. Everybody's out there is going to tell you, you know, the answer to your question. You got to weed through that to find out the best answer, the best evidence-based practice. So yeah, great questions. So just go back to Dr. Church and ask him when he expects that. Great question. All right, what else can I help you with tonight? And I'm here as long as you're here.
Oh,
yes,
sorry.
Go ahead.
Sorry, it's back. We're just backpedaling a little bit to the discussion that was made earlier with regards to data, specifically on difficulty of collecting data this year. And I had a few ideas that I was bouncing around in my head about data collection and what format it can take specifically. I know that in a typical year, expectation would be that it is very much a traditional like data collection model and display of said data. Like when it comes to like, hey, test scores, results for assessments, things of that nature. But I was wondering how flexible you guys tend to be when it comes to, I guess I'll refer to it as non-traditional data collection. Let me just to expand upon that. Like my PLC is the entire math department, right? And a wide variety of our feedback we get in terms of the current level of our students, which is low. It comes from short-term assessments, things like exit tickets, things like direct questioning, response times to things like that. And sometimes it's hard to quantify that in one clear visual. So I was wondering, like, if I have a paragraph or something that is a little not necessarily vague, but like a little more abstract than your traditional data visual, in terms of like showing where students are at or showing information I'm working with that's driving my decisions. Could I have a paragraph essentially describing the fact that like, hey, of the 5 exit tickets given over the course of this week from 3 different math teachers, we noticed that response time or general completion percentage was significantly lower than usual. We might not have completely concrete numbers because getting responses from students over Zoom or having, I guess I would say like very, I guess, traditional feedback on things like that. I know that's not exactly what you're looking for, and I know I'm rambling a bit here, but I just wanted to hear your thoughts on that. The idea that like some data that I would like to talk about in my data collection or data visuals might be a little less concrete than I would imagine would typically be done on assignments like this. So what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, Sean, and don't worry about rambling. You're talking to the king of rambling right here. So don't worry about it at all. It was great. It was a great input, and I appreciate that question. And we go back to, nothing's traditional right now.
Right.
Nothing in the last 2 years going into this year is traditional right now. We hope it gets back. So yeah, that is all, just long as you tell the reasoning, and be logical about it, but the reasoning behind what you're doing and how you're displaying it, and this is what's leading you to that point, it's okay, as long as you just explain that to the reader. Now keep in mind, and what you just said in a paragraph can be represented, graphically as well.
Right.
The rubric is going to ask for a visual, so make sure that you meet that part of the rubric. And but yeah, nobody's going to hold you to traditional way of presenting data and talking about data right now with what we're doing with COVID, and talk about that in your narrative. That we're in the 3rd year of the pandemic, and we have a high rate of students are out, students are quarantined. This is what we're having to do. Have to look more at check-in data, more at the formative data that we use within the class period. It may just be a conversation, like you said, direct questioning over a Zoom link because that kid's quarantined. So yeah, no problem with that at all, not whatsoever. If I ever see the only thing that I would say is make sure that it's clear to the reader. If I ever see it's a little bit vague and at least a little bit of question as to what led you into the need that you established, then I'll let you know. Yep.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate
Yes,
that.
sir. Yes, sir. Great. And like I said, if you ever go back and read the rubric, in the scale handbook, make sure you read the directions, make sure you read the description, make sure you read the prompts and the rubric, because there's pieces of information and all that will help you in this. Now it's 7:59. I will stay here as long as you want me to. We'll keep recording. If you have any follow-up questions, but I'm like everybody else. I'm not going to hold you past the allotted time. So you're free to leave. You can go back and look at the recording later past 7:59 to see if you missed anything. I know you guys have got things you need to do. So feel free to head out. You are very welcome. But now, any questions that I can answer before you go?
I do have a quick question, but it's very, very school specific for my school. I teach at I'm a curriculum facilitator at a public separate school. So all of our kiddos have severe medical needs and IEPs. And so maybe only 1/10 of our population actually take a standardized test. And one thing that we're working on going back to now is making sure that we have a common assessment throughout our school, but that hasn't been given like we don't have any historical data to go back on. It's just being implemented now.
Okay.
And so I guess what I'm thinking, the best data that I can gather that all of my kids would have would be IEP data, but I know that's very, very, very student specific. So I guess I'm trying to grasp at straws right now. I know that one of the big things that we talked about as part of the admin team is the SAMR from the MTSS data that we collected, and kind of know some pockets that I know that are struggling, and how I support teachers in areas that, like, collecting data, understanding data, that kind of thing is an area I know that we're struggling in. And I know that with the nature of our students, a lot of IEP goals are repeated just because of being hospitalized, or with COVID, a lot of our kiddos couldn't really attend through virtual learning, that kind of thing. And so I guess I'm just trying to figure out how I'm going to quantify data that is so student specific. I mean, I guess I could do it like functional goals and that kind of thing. But I don't know how, like, attendance, and because our school is 3 years old to 22. And so that's how the span of my PLC is as well. So I guess I'm just struggling with that.
No, and I tell you what, man, you're right on target. You might not, think that you are, but you are, because now that I was an EC teacher. That's what I did for several years before I moved into administration. And how do you determine progress on EC students is meeting IEP goals? And
Right.
when you said looking for pockets, that's perfect. Look at that group, whatever group that you're looking at. Look at that. How are they progressing towards their IEP goals? Is there a trend there somewhere? Is there a pocket? And that's what's going to help that group is addressing that. What's the greatest need? It might not be a need for all, but what's the greatest need, and what's going to have the greatest impact on the greatest number of students? And in the past, and I think that's great that you guys are moving towards kind of some type of standardized assessment. But in the past, what have you used to gain to determine if these students are progressing now? What have you used to determine if achievement is happening? And by achievement, I'm not talking about proficiency. With EC students, you know as well as I do, proficiency's out the window. We just want to see these kids grow. And how are you determining that?
And I think that's our big hole is teachers were taking data, but not looking at data trends. And that was our huge hole that I know exists, because I look at their data sheets and I'm like, this doesn't tell me anything.
Great. That's what you address then. That's the greatest need. And that's going to have a positive impact on student achievement or student growth in your area. That's perfect. Just make sure that the reader knows the dynamics of the culture within what you're working, and what are the dynamics of your school, and tell that story. That's great. That's great.
Okay. So should I focus? Sorry, I feel like I'm monopolizing the conversation right now. But should I focus on, since we do go from 3 years old to 22, should I focus on a subgroup, like the kiddos that we do have some extend 1 data on, that I have a little bit more to go off of? Or should I look at it as a whole?
Whatever is manageable for you. That's what I talk about with my dissertation students when I was a dissertation chair. What's manageable for you? When you're a principal, you got time to work on some big projects. Don't have that luxury right now. So what's manageable for you as a candidate within the confines of MELS 601? And if it's just looking for that specific group, then just look at that specific group. You can go back later and look at the whole, but make sure that you don't chasing rabbit trails or whatever cliche you want to use, biting off more you can chew. Just make sure that whatever you determine is manageable for you. If you feel like you really want to find out what's going on with the whole, and you got time to do that and you can manage that, then do that. If not, then shrink it down a little bit to where the most neediest group is. That's kind of where the rubric talks about, looking at the diversity of the group. What is your most neediest group? You may want to look at that. Yes.
Good deal. Yeah, because I didn't want to extrapolate all this data and then be like, it doesn't really tie back to
Yep.
an area that I know was very identified in the SAMR. And can I use the SAMR data that our school leadership team did?
If that's what your school determined to use, then yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. It's all about, it's the uniqueness of your environment. That's why in that description of the setting, or that you tell at the very beginning, you describe your school at the very beginning of your paper. That's why that's so important. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
You're very welcome. All right. Anybody else got anything that I can help you with? And we do the wait time. And we do the wait time. All right. Now I'm getting ready to sign off unless there's anything anybody else needs. I'll put the recording on here sometime within the next 24 hours, and you can refer back to anything you need to. But if you're watching the recording, feel free to reach out to me, email me, let me know what you need. If it's a phone conversation, let me know. We'll get on the phone, just whatever you need. I hope and pray that you and your family stay safe and healthy. If you need anything, let us know. And thanks again for a great evening. You guys are awesome. See you soon. Bye-bye.